and touch on forgiveness. I know forgiveness is something that we've all battled with, whether we haven't really fully understood forgiveness, where we're not able to extend forgiveness, or maybe we haven't been able to receive the forgiveness because we want to just beat ourselves up and hold ourselves in captivity, or hold somebody else in captivity. And we've all have battled with an unforgiving heart, whether it's towards someone else or towards ourselves. And we've all heard the phrase forgive and forget. But I see an issue with forgive and forget, because if you begin to forget, then you haven't really fully began the process of forgiving. Because if you're forgetting, then you're trying to erase the past and whatever the traumatic experience it was that you've experienced where you needed to extend forgiveness. But you cannot forget and you cannot erase the past. That's physically impossible. We all know that. I struggled with forgiveness in an area of my life. I lived with my father from 2000 to 2001. Now, we didn't have the best relationship, but he was there for me financially. He would leave me money for school, for college, but wasn't really there to teach me how to become a man, a respectable man, how to treat women, how to date, how to budget money, um, correct mannerisms. He didn't teach me any of that. So one day I was preparing to cut my hair. So I used to cut my hair back in high school and college. So to save a little money, when you're in college, you have to work around the corners and try to cut corners and save as much money as you can as possible. So I used to cut my hair. So I would use a separate mirror to see the back of my head while I'm cutting my hair. While this particular mirror, my father's girlfriend would leave in the room, and she normally left it underneath the bed for some strange reason. I'll get to that in just a moment. So I begin to go into the room. Now they're both at work. This is probably about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Um, so I go in, I go into the room, and then I begin to search for this mirror. Now it's not in the normal place where it's normally left, which is on her side of the bed, underneath the bed. So I'm like, okay, well, let me check on the opposite side of the bed, which is my dad's side of the bed, and see maybe if it's there. So sure enough, I walk around the bed to the other side. I get down on all fours. I crouch down, begin to feel with my hand underneath the bed while I feel the mirror. But next to the mirror, I noticed that there was a plate, and it was a dinner plate. And why did it need to be there? So I pulled the mirror out with my right hand, and then I pulled the plate out with my left hand. I found some drugs around the plate. So I confronted my dad when he got home from work. This created a huge argument. He picked his girlfriend's side over me. He wanted to fight me. He was drunk. And according to what I found on the plate, he was also high, just getting off work. So about a year or two go by, and we haven't talked. We haven't addressed the situation. There hasn't been any forgiveness. So this is now 2003, 2004. And we act like no one exists around each other. I don't give him any existence. He doesn't give me any existence. So our relationship kind of continues along that same path, where finally we run into each other at a barbecue, a family barbecue, and we just start talking like nothing ever happened. Okay, no forgiveness, no talking about that situation. Um, so yeah, and it wasn't until I fully surrendered my life to Jesus Christ, December 31st, 2012. And then about 6 months after that date, I was at a men's conference in Oxnard, California at New Life Community Church. It was called the Taliesin. Larry Titus puts this on. And he had a panel of great prolific preachers. And I happened to be sitting in, and it was our first session, and Pastor Phil Allen brought this dynamic word, and it was on the father scar. Now, it was easily relatable because he too struggled with an alcoholic and drug addicted father, which caused so much separation and a huge falling out among among the father and son. But it was very profound what Pastor Phil Allen had said. He said that he had forgiven his father on his father's deathbed, and he said goodbye to his father, and then his father passed away. But in that moment, he was able to extend that forgiveness. But it wasn't until he understood that he was forgiven. So this resonated within my heart, and in that moment, I understood that I need to fully receive the forgiveness of Jesus Christ and what he did on the cross in order to extend the forgiveness. Because up until that point, I always would walk around and say, oh, I forgive my father. I love my father. I forgive him. But I never really forgave him. I harbored so much pain and hurt and resentment that I would just bury it deep down inside. But what God did that night when I heard Pastor Phil Allen speak, is he began to allow that to surface up, and I had to deal with it. But it grew me, and I matured from it. And what I learned was that I can't extend any forgiveness to anyone, especially my father, until I have fully understood the forgiveness that was offered for me first. But what I also learned that forgiveness doesn't erase the past. Forgiveness doesn't restore relationships. Forgiveness is an act. It's a will.